about her at the age of 70 as a female. That was really interesting for us. So as we then started kind of going on the journey, spending a lot of time with elders, at the age of 70, trying to understand her story, this female freedom fighter's story. We were talking to a lot of elders, and they were explaining to us that they were having issues now where this kind of the elderly abuse was happening, accused of witchcraft, and land and inheritance and other jealousies were happening. So that's initially how the journey began. And then after 2 years actually of filming along the coast, Chris and I then came back to Nairobi, and we were looking for somebody to translate the Giriama footage, which is one specific language from that area. We both speak Swahili, but we don't speak Giriama. And we were put in touch with Karisa, who then came over. And as he was watching this footage, I don't think, like he was in shock that this was happening, number one, to other families. And as he was watching the footage, he was also saying, this is happening to my grandma now.
Wow.
People in
that
my
was
family
going to be my next question.
Yeah, people in my family are accusing my grandma of being a witch. And and then that's how our journey really began with Karisa. He took us to the family home, which was also a big deal, especially with a topic which is, you don't speak about these things outside of the family. But we spent really a lot of time with Nyanya and Karisa. And that's how it began.
Wow. Karisa, one of the questions I had for you is, and I have to say, I loved the piece with your puppeteering, and I wish I could have seen more of that. I'm like, yeah, because it just brings a different element of it. I'm sure you shot a lot more of it, and it was a difficult choice about how much more to put in, which is always the challenge. But when did you become aware of witchcraft as a serious threat to your grandmother?
At first, I, like what Maya has told you, it was happening in neighborhoods. Yeah, so happening to my family, it was something that came like something new to me. Yeah, most of the families around here, they usually don't talk about their problems. They just keep it inside their homes. Like they don't spread rumors around of their family because they don't want to show a bad image to their family. So it just happened that while I was doing the translations, and there is a Facebook group that we we have our family have like it's like an extended family of three. My grandmother, he has his brother who lives next by, and then he has another brother who lives by. So we have a Facebook group for all the three families. So it was like some cousins were spreading rumors there. They're saying that the family is a witch at home, and grandmother is the only old person that was there. So this old woman trying to hurt us. She's been killing our uncles, our aunties. So posting the message, it came unexpectedly because like I was doing the translation and this thing was happening. So it to me like I should go back home and check on what is happening at home and like investigate more about the family. That's how it came to me, and how I did the investigation, and that's how the story came for our family. That's the story came out about grandma. So I had to go back home, start asking grandma what is happening. Is true. So she had to start explaining to me that our family members said this and that and that. So that's how the story came first.
Okay. Wow.
But it wasn't it was, yeah, just go.
So it happened basically while you were, one would call it serendipity, I think. I have to say the all the characters were really very comfortable. Of course, it's a very uncomfortable topic, but despite that, I felt that everyone was pretty comfortable within the telling. I mean, you could feel the discomfort, but it also needed to be told as well. I think what's interesting is that it's such a complex story of love and family, of hurt as well. the legacy of colonialism, the mistrust of traditional beliefs, the tension between Christianity and traditional beliefs, and how all of this gets mixed up in ultimately, people's, I don't know whether the word is greed, maybe it's greed, but it probably goes beyond that. I mean, grandmother works so hard, and it seems that she's the hardest working person on the team. I mean, obviously she was 95. She's 95 years old, which means, you had to follow her around. And who was keeping up with who?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Maybe my on.
Go ahead.
Because where it's so hilly, so you have to go time.
Okay,
there,
Karisa, sorry. Your audio is not great right now. I'm just going to go to Maya and Christopher, and we'll come back to you just now. Maybe they can just share, just in terms of a little bit of the process and keeping up with grandma in that process, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, it's funny you say keeping up, because I think, I guess there was a lot of time spent where we didn't have a camera, and I think that's probably one of the main. It took us a while to be able to be comfortably in a room with a camera, and for people to not be reacting as much to the camera, performing to the camera, which is what most people's initial tendency is when strangers show up with a camera and they're filming you eating breakfast or whatnot. So grandma we'd be living at the Kamango house with Karisa for I don't know, 3-4 weeks at a time, coming back and forth between Nairobi and Mombasa, and Nyanya would just have her daily rituals that we would follow her along. Some days, other days we'd follow other people and go knock on different doors, or we'd go traveling around the area and seeing different sites. Like every day, kind of grandma would be going down to the farm, and everyone would go off into their different directions, and keeping up with the kids, keeping up with everything else going on. It definitely kept us on our toes. Once we were there and we were amongst it, and we felt so welcomed. We found everything just beautiful to capture. Which definitely made the edit a lot more difficult. We
filmed a lot of stuff, but also like Nyanya, like it was amazing, as you say, at the age of 95, is like, she's climbing these hills where you'd be climbing for 5 minutes, like as a city person, and you're just like so it was amazing, and it was just great, really spending that time, that her ritual every day, just sitting under that mango tree, looking after her rice, and feeding her whole family essentially. It was a beautiful process. I mean, obviously on top of a lot of undercurrents and dangers and things happening, but the general day-to-day, it was a beautiful experience.
Karisa, you wanted to talk about keeping up with your grandma?
Yeah, is the sound now?
We'll keep going. Let's see how it is.
Okay, so at first it wasn't easy, coming with visitors to our home, and then just trying to share our family story. It wasn't difficult to explain to Nyanya, explain to the family who is Maya. So it was some time for Nyanya to get to know them. And at last, when we kept coming and going, at least got used to the project that we my friends and together. She opened herself because she gets her own children. So that's how she came to open up and the South Spirit about.
Thank you so much, Karisa. I just wanted to say, I'm sure a lot of the reason why, obviously you needed to build that process, But I think your relationship with your grandmother is just so beautiful. And she obviously, you're one of her favored grandchildren. But she obviously, I'm sure she loves everyone. But I think you have some kind of favored relationship with her, and it was beautiful to see. You know, how she was able to talk to you and express things to you, which it feels like she may not have even have been able to talk to your father about. So I enjoyed that, and I loved how that was crafted. You know, it obviously took a lot of time to dig under the surface of a lot of the issues. I'm just wondering, since the film, has there been like an acknowledgement of witchcraft and the process of what I think is, if one has to articulate it, elder abuse in terms of the government and policies? Is there any conversation happening on a national level around, on a legal level around any of these issues?
Well, we have a Witchcraft Act from 1922 or something, when it was still British. But outside of the film, we haven't released the film yet in Kenya. Actually, Encounters is our first kind of African premiere, first time showing it on the continent, with hopefully then us bringing it home later in the year. But we are kind of also working with a whole impact campaign that we're just about to roll out in November, where we are kind of starting with community screenings and then discussions and dialogue, and then how do we then make elderly abuse a national priority. So we are working on that currently.
There are occasional, as you saw at the end of the film, occasional like press stories in the newspapers and television as well, every couple of months. But we really found a lot of these things were being lost in the 24-hour news cycle, and it's not really an issue that even people in Nairobi are really aware of. Different government people we met have differing levels, and everyone agrees that this is a horrible thing and something needs to be done. The elderly abuse, but
which only started like 10 years ago, by the way.
That's curious as well in terms of the trajectory, and when did it become a strategy of dispossession? Can we talk a little bit about the family relationships and how much of the tension is really about this whole notion of like the stepmother and the resentment towards the stepmother, despite the fact that she lovingly, came to them. What was that like, kind of digging deeper into those family conflicts?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that was probably our biggest challenge of all, and definitely working with Karisa early on, and the conversations we had about the film and what it was we all thought was necessary to do. One of the biggest fears that we all shared was, like possibly making worse any issues that were happening. So it was really important for us to approach everyone in the family with as much respect as possible, and portray them as respectfully as we could within the film. And it was important for us that everyone's perspective was a value to the story, to understand the complexities and the nuances. And at least from our, unfortunately, Garisa's audio isn't great, but I'd love to hear what he says here. But for us, it was, in conversations, everyone, as we spoke and as we interviewed everyone agreed that this was an important thing to speak about, because it really is affecting so many families. And as long as this kind of veil of silence is happening, then we're worried that the violence will be perpetuated, and a lot of families will continue suffering until this can be spoken about openly. So yeah, that was tricky to navigate. and everyone got to see the film at the end, and everyone was happy with how the film came together, which we're really glad about. We were extremely devastated. I don't know if you know, but Nyanya actually passed away about 6 weeks ago now.
Oh, so sorry to hear that. No.
Yeah,
didn't know.
that was a big tragedy for the family and for everyone. And thankfully, everyone came together at her funeral and her burial back at home. And we saw the pictures ourselves. We weren't there, but we were very happy to see that everyone came together.
I'm going to come to Karisa just now, but I think your starting point of looking at the freedom fighter, I think even though I'm not sure what her role was at the time, she clearly is such a warrior and was very inspiring. And what a beautiful legacy you've been able to, together with Karisa, be able to offer everyone in the family, first and foremost, and definitely to the continent, to remember, these incredible women who hold families together.
Yeah, that's she's a freedom fighter, also my grandmother.
Beautiful.
In her own way. Yeah. Cause like you are saying that she being a stepmother to my uncles. Yeah, it was not easy for her, cause the stories she told me before her getting married, being a stepmom, she used to help her sister there before she became the mother of the other uncles. So it wasn't an easy thing for her. And then, you take care of kids, and then when they become big, they start saying that you're a bad person. So I really felt for her. So it was really pitiable for me seeing that, because at first, back in the days, usually my uncles will come together in the family, because even most of my cousins, we never knew that she was like a step mama to them,
because
we knew she was
mom.
Because we knew she was because we knew she was the only grandmother that we had in the family. So upon this thing coming out, also it really revealed that our family had more stories in it back in so we never knew. So it also made me know my family more, coming deeper into my roots. It wasn't easy, because we had to go to my uncles to consult with them about this issue, go to my other aunties. So that's why it took a long time for us to come and reveal this story, because you had to go to this person, you explain this and that. And then, after she died also, like most of the uncles came out, and then they were asking like, how is the movie going on? How is the film? So I was like, we are still going on. But the good thing is that we need to come together also, at least people to forgive each other, so that Nyanya, where she is, she can rest in peace. And then so that she can, where she is, she'll see the family also coming together back again. So those were the discussions that were happening at the funeral. Yeah, and you remember the funeral was during this time of COVID-19.
Wow.
So some of other cousins were not able to reach, and other family members, like Akina Chris, they were not able to reach their friends. And so it was just in a hurried, the burial was hurried, but at least it passed well that day for the funeral, because there was no like, some people were around her home, they were saying that Nyanya is not good, is not a good person, but there was no sad news like people saying that she was a bad person, but people were saying that she lived well, like people recognized her.
Beautiful. Just on some technical levels, Christopher, I see that you have the cinematography credit and shot most of the film. Did you shoot with someone else, or you have the only cinematography credit?
Yeah, we had a crew of two, Maya on sound, myself on camera.
Wow, I was wondering who was sound, because I think I always look at the credits and I can't. Did you take that credit for sound, Maya?
I
don't think you put it. I don't know. I don't think you put it in.
Yeah, no, I'm actually it was a learning experience. It was a learning experience. Yeah, it was a learning experience for me doing sound. So there is a lot of bad sound, but it's our first film. It's okay. I'm now ready for the second film.
Oh, luckily, because you crafted it so well, we're totally not aware of any bad sound. So well done on that.
Thank you.
And you also did the score for the film. Tell us what some of your inspiration was, because it was Kenyan, but it was also diaspora. That's the kind of sense I had. Just talk us through a little bit about that aspect and the inspiration for it.
So yes, as some may not know, I'm also a touring musician. And I have a band. And when we were kind of going through this process, like throughout the 6 years of filming along the coast, the music, especially in this area. So first of all, because my family is from this area, but also I grew up as a city kid, so I really didn't know a lot deeply about this area. And actually, it's funny because Karisa, his grandma lived literally across the road from where my uncles lived. So it was in very close proximity, but spending those 6 years, like a lot of time in that particular village, as well as in other villages, the music is extremely rich, like the Giriama Mijikenda music. And so it was really just kind of learning a couple of things and hearing some rhythms and then figuring out, how, was just being very inspired by all these sounds. And then I was talking to Chris and our editor, who were like, well, why don't you try and think about creating a score, which I'd never done before for the film. And I was a bit like, no, I just don't want to take anything away from Nyanya. I just didn't want to put myself in that mix as a musician. But as we then kind of spoke more, and I just started doing some writing, and I did get a little bit inspired. I then was able to put down Miembe, which is the title track at the end, and wrote that and just kind of played that with guitar. And then that kind of came to be. And the first song that you hear when Nyanya is walking up the hill is actually a children's song that Karisa actually taught me. And it's usually kind of, it's quite fast. So for me, it was just, how do you kind of make it high pitched and much, much slower. And then I was able to kind of play around with a couple of sounds. So the whole score was created by myself and Ken Meir, who's an amazing musical master from Canada, and he really taught me a lot of things. And together we were able to build this score, which kind of acts as a spiritual guardian, I think, for a lot of the elderly in the film.
Beautiful, lovely. It's always beautiful and well done. If you're saying this is your first film, it all came together really beautifully. It really had such heart and you wanted Nyanya to win, and so even though there's tensions between everyone, you really wanted to know that she was going to be okay. So it was really beautifully crafted, I have to say. And in terms of the language, then. You said you didn't speak, so you did speak the language from the area? I mean, everyone spoke Swahili, right? Or were they speaking the local language that you needed translation for? How did that work?
Yeah, so most people, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, in the area where the shelter is, for instance, it's quite remote, and most of the elders don't even speak Swahili in that area. Or there were times where we could ask a question in Swahili and they could respond in Giriama, and we could, Giriama is also a Bantu language, so we could at least follow along well enough, but not enough to subtitle or not enough to edit properly. So we kind of hung on for those first few trips. But I guess also when we met Karisa, not only was he able to, one of the people that could tell us kind of the intricacies of what was really being spoken about, but I guess as we know, language is so key for people's souls to be expressed properly. So it was important to have that vernacular and to have Giriama captured in the film, and that's the language that Karisa and his grandma speak naturally. Most of Garisa's siblings don't know Giriama because they didn't grow up with grandma. Like a lot of Kenyans our age also don't speak the language of their grandparents. So yeah, there's 42 languages here in Kenya. It's a lot to keep up with, but yeah, it's a beautiful
all
one.
the things we don't know about our neighboring countries. Karisa, do you want to talk about the language?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. Yeah, because most of the elders, they just so they can express the point using their language, the Giriama language. So yeah, even me sometimes, I'm used to this top cream Giriama language. There's some words that are so like vocabularies. You need to, when the old man tells you this word, you have to like go back and ask him, what does that mean? Because I'm used to this word. So even me, this made me also to know some other indigenous words from the Giriama, because the elders, they're used to the real raw Giriama language, and me, I'm used to the top layer. Yeah. So
how do we say it in like the kitchen version?
Yeah.
As you're saying, the top layer, the one that yeah. But you're very blessed that you actually do speak some of the language. Unfortunately, both my grandparents, both my grandmothers who are alive, spoke Zulu and Tamil. But because of apartheid and colonialism, they felt I should only learn English. So as a result, I couldn't actually communicate with them except through sign language and smiles and touch. But I had no access to actually speak to them in a language. So you're very lucky that you could still talk to your grandma.
Yeah, I really appreciate, because I was born in that place, and then the first like 3 years I was there. Yeah, I went to school there. The first the kindergarten school I was there. So I used to stay with my grandmother there. I used to, when I come home during lunch hours, I go to Nyanya's place. Nyanya's place, there were some mango trees there, guava trees. So I used to play there. So that is what made me know the language. And then also my parents, when we came back, they used to talk to me in the Giriama language. So that's how it came to me, and that's how, at least I'm proud of it. And also I can do my music with it also. So it has really built me also.
Lovely. Yeah. I have a question from Mandisa Zita, who is the festival director. The question is, the film has no narration, which gives it a gentle approach to representing all the questions and sides. Was that a choice from the beginning?
I didn't get that well.
And this is more a question for Maya and Christopher. The choice of not using narration in the film. Tell us a little bit about that choice that you made.
Yeah, we did. I mean, I think we knew from the beginning that we didn't want a kind of a narrative perspective. But at the same time, we were finding it quite challenging because, trying to kind of tell the whole colonial side of things, and also showing the breakdown between the religions, from when the traditional beliefs and then the missionaries when they came. And we were really thinking at that point, should we try and narrate at least just that part, just for people to understand? Or then should we just kind of leave it like it's just this kind of family story, very intimate, very emotional, and people will be able to kind of, figure it out from themselves. So from the beginning, it definitely was a choice not to narrate.
And I think it was important for us that, I guess, whatever the audience's politics or beliefs are, they be allowed to interpret the events of the film based on their perspective. So we didn't want to create a kind of an omnipresent voice that would be explaining, one thing or the other. And even with the genesis of the film, looking at this historical freedom fighter from the First World War, we kind of realized very quickly, this being our first film, how difficult it is to tell a kind of historical story or a literal story without becoming academic or dry or getting into ethnography. So once we met Karisa and Nyanya and the family, we found that just being able to sit and watch how everyone interacts and all the nuances and the emotional levels and tensions. That's what we really wanted to come out, and we found that any voiceover or even interviews, for that fact, we use interviews to a degree as I guess voiceover, but we filmed hundreds of interviews over the years of filming that never got used. We just were way more inclined to capture that kind of verite observational style.
Great. I have more questions. Let me ask one of them and commenters actually. This one's from Solofelo Kwakwa. Thank you so much, Maya, Christopher, and Karisa, for telling this important story. I hope that it brings about the awareness, change, and healing that is much needed in Africa. What steps can we take as various nations to bring about change? Okay, guys, we're going to be here for the next couple of days, but if you can answer that in summary. What steps can we take to bring the elders that are in Kaya Godma, I'm not saying that right, Godhoma, back to their families? To bring justice to those that have been killed due to witchcraft accusations. Oh, wow. That's the social impact stuff. But let's see how you're going to answer that.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a really big loaded question. And I think that essentially kind of from the reason why we got into making this film was to figure out these next steps and how can we then kind of, with many people on the continent or within each country that are dealing with these same situations, be able to then put our governments, in the forefront and be like, okay, so what are we doing? How are we going about this? But it is so complicated because, as a lot of us know, when it comes to issues around land and religion, it's so difficult to kind of dissect. So I think from our perspective as filmmakers, it's just literally how can we share this film across the continent as much as possible for people to have access to it, and also then to be able to create some toolkit or something that that then people are able to then use the film together with kind of different tools to be able to have these discussions and yeah.
I think we're also seeing, I guess, the themes that were playing out in the film also as kind of universal issues as well. I know the way that elderly or elders are being treated. I'm Australian, and it's a big issue that a lot of elderly people are left in hospitals or elderly homes. I guess this whole growth of kind of industrial capitalism, as soon as you become past kind of working age and you're no longer productive to an economy, then you're not valued in society. And seeing how much, coming to a place like Kenya and seeing how much elders are respected and how important family is, that all has a risk of getting lost as we become more kind of obsessed with work and with money and with producing. Stuff. Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's something we all need to think about, definitely on the continent and also outside of the continent. And this is our contribution to try and just shine a mirror back on that. And maybe it can be reversed. Maybe, it's definitely not too late, but some big conversations need to be had, and they need to happen pretty soon.
Well, I think one of the beautiful things visually as a viewer is just the multi-generational cohabitation and how beautifully and seamlessly everyone's lives are interconnected. The beautiful relationship that Karisa has with his younger cousins, as he talks to them and plays with them, and the respect he has for his elders. So it's I think it's there, that experience, which we don't really have a lot of access to, that multi-generational cohabitation from which many of us come. And we often, we often accuse younger people of not knowing stuff, but the not knowing is when they're taken out of that context. Then you don't have hundreds of cousins to teach you about stuff, whereas you're just on your own trying to figure it out. So I do have another question. What was the difficult part of making this film? Oh, wait, actually, there's a lot of other questions. Wait. Right. Also, okay, we can. I'll ask both questions and you can answer both. And then that's from Cry Kekana. What was the challenge? What was the difficult part of making the film? And another one from Mandisa is, Karisa, what was your transformation as you went on this journey of filming with Maya and Chris? So let's start with the first question to the filmmakers, and then we'll go to the second question directed at Karisa.
So the question, what was the difficult part of making the film? I think the first thing is that, especially because, as we mentioned earlier, like with these kind of issues which are within the family units, you don't publicly speak about them. So I think just trying to navigate that space as to, okay, how is it most respectfully as possible? How is it that we can potentially tell this story? And also then for be able to gain Nyanya's trust and Karisa's trust to be able to tell this story as best as we can. So there it was it wasn't difficult, but it was just challenging, I think. And then also, what else? Oh, especially, of course, like, because, you're talking to a lot of elderly people and they're telling you that they're now in Kayagodoma, or they've just lost a friend. Like, we did a lot of interviews with like this journalist who was kind of showing us crazy photos of how people were being killed and how many were being killed, which is, more than 10 elders are being killed every month. So that was really challenging. And as filmmakers, you want to, it's difficult because you're kind of a semi-bystander. You're kind of telling like a long form film. So eventually something is going to create change. But at that time, you can't, like, it's hard. It's because you're kind of attaching yourself, but you're also having to detach yourself, if that makes any sense.
You have to work with two brains.
Yeah.
You have to listen with your heart, and you have to have what we call in theater the cool strip. Where we see the bigger picture. Yes, these are the challenges of being a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Thank you. Karisa, what was your transformation as you went on this journey of making this film? And here you are. Welcome.
Okay.
We get to see you on the last question.
Okay. Yeah. Nice to see you too. So, all I can say is, yeah, it was a great journey because it made me like get to know more about my roots, my culture. Because this, I wasn't expecting to be featured in a film like this about my family, because like exposing my family, like what the people are saying around here. So it really made me get to know more about my family, get to know about my culture. Because me, myself, I'm a cultural artist. So it made me go back to the elders to get to know about our roots, like the Giriamas, about Mekatilili Wamenza. This was something that we used to do in school. Yeah, so it was just some theory. But now it came out to be something practical. And also it has made me also to get to know, to be coming back home, because sometimes we used to come back home during Christmas time. So at least now it made me and grandma to come closer to her. Because maybe if it wasn't about this film, maybe I would have just come during her burial. So this one would have not been good for me also. Yeah, so at least it made me also, after she had died, I feel also like I've had some good time with her also before she left us. Also, like also, at first people were afraid of why am I doing this film. So even during the funeral, people came out and they're like, "Hey, we are doing a film about grandma. What is happening? What is going on? When is it going to be ready?" So people are like, "Can't we watch it during the funeral? Is it ready?" So I
Oh,
just told them
wow.
that it will be ready. Yeah. So like people, they didn't understand at first, but now at least they've come out to, they're like, yeah, it's a good story. So even us, we can be sharing these stories so that everybody knows about these stories. Because most of the people are afraid of sharing their stories.
Yes.
And this is the difficult thing about it. So at least when people try to share out these stories, it will be easier for us to get a solution also, and also get a way forward about it. Yeah.
I loved the part when I'm just seeing it where grandma's like, yeah, you haven't come now for a long time, and you're like, oh, I just saw you, and she's like, no, 5 months, 5 months.
Yeah,
It really it spoke so much about, and we don't often remember. We go on with our lives, but especially in that time when in some ways they know that their time is coming, to say goodbye. They want us around. Yeah.
And it's so sad. It's so sad because she was just sitting around her home the day before she died. She was just seated. She was talking to my auntie, and then after that, she just felt as if something is wrong to her, and then she just fell down, and that is how she left. Yeah, so it was really sad for everybody. Yeah.
But at least at like the age of 95, she lived a good life, and at least we were able to capture her spirit and her soul. So she'll always be there.
Thank you. And here's the question: what transformation as filmmakers did you go through on this journey?
I mean, the film has affected our lives. I guess it's been such a personal journey that we can't really separate it from our life and the film. I think we became so just engrossed and wrapped up with this thing for 6 years.
Wow.
From beginning to end. One of the triggers that made us want to go to the coast as well is that, like Maya said, her father's family, or part of her father's family, is from this area, and this was a part of the country and a part of her heritage that I guess when we got married, we were really interested to go on this journey together and learn more about Maya's Mijikenda roots. Meet a lot of the relatives and connect with people like Karisa and Grandma, who are neighbors. For me, as a foreigner coming from Australia, I'd been living here for 13 years, but also living away from my family was also very difficult. So also to be brought in and to be welcomed like we were welcomed by Grandma and Karisa and the aunties and uncles.
Yeah.
We really feel like we are an extension of the family even now, and it means a huge amount to us. Even outside of making the film.
Maya?
Well, I mean, he kind of said it all perfectly. So I would ditto what he just said.
Ditto. Okay, lovely. Guys, is there anything, obviously I could ask lots of other questions, but maybe is there anything you want to share about the process or, thematically that we may have missed? I think we just have a couple more minutes. Is there anything else you'd like to share with people who've watched the film? Any call to action you may have?
I think we're in an interesting space now where I'm beginning to reach out to different community groups, organizations, where the film can be shown and can be used as a tool for discussion, which has been our kind of most important part of the process. But because of COVID, that's really put a spanner in the works as far as bringing people together, which makes sessions like this all the more important. So we're thankful for that to you and Encounters. But no, our hopes really are to take the film to as many areas as possible, and for this to be a trigger for conversations. So yeah, we can start to unpack all of these complex issues that are going on that we're not always talking about or aware of. I'd say, yeah, that's like at least the big takeaway for us. So definitely down in South Africa, we're working with some partner organizations, including Heinrich Boll, who've helped us get the word out. And we're hoping to work with them and other partners to, yeah, show the film to groups of elders, even
women's groups, youth groups, you know, religious leaders, and just figure out and kind of like the wider conversation.
I think as well with the way that a lot of traditional knowledge systems are being lost and you know, systematically eradicated in a lot of senses, like in the way that this kind of religious battle is going on at the coast of Kenya. And across the whole country, really, the way that traditional political systems and knowledge systems have really been demonized by the kind of colonial brainwashing that's happened. It's very sad to see that that's being perpetuated here on the ground, but yeah, I'm hoping that we can also at least question that a bit more.
Well, that is going to be very interesting in South Africa, definitely. I think for us, the issues of land, we haven't really gotten into. So this question of land, and what's interesting there in Kenya is how the land conversation is happening. But in South Africa, we have a whole set of other conversations around land. We even have issues about ownership of land. And up until 1995, African women were considered minorities and could not own land. So as a result, many women and many families have been excluded from inheritance. So it's going to open up a can of worms, guys. Even the question of religion, traditional religion, and how it was depicted, that act in 1922, I don't know what the act was. There was a global act. I think there was a global law around from the papacy, and I don't know how far back that goes. But all of that is, I think what's exciting is in South Africa, we have a lot of young people who are wanting to learn more and are pursuing that. Many people, I mean, the number of young people I know who've become traditional healers is also very exciting. So it adds a whole other dynamic. I think it's going to be very exciting in South Africa. But just on the continent, just learning to honor our elders and see them as a resource and appreciate them. And yeah, I think if nothing else, it allows us through Nyanya to remember the women of this continent who've been freedom fighters and who've been stitching all the bits and pieces together. So thank you so very much for the film. And obviously it's been such an incredible journey, and you've shared that with us, and the film itself was a wonderful experience. Thank you to Karisa for joining us as well, and for sharing your life and your family. I think that was really brave. It's not many of us will go down that road.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much to you, Maganthi, for having us.
Thank you very much to the Encounters Film Festival, and I hope you all will watch other films. It's an incredible lineup. And it's really a once a year treat to have all these international and local films by incredible documentary filmmakers. Karisa, do you want to say your parting words?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody, Encounters, and you yourself, everybody around who have organized this. really appreciate. Yeah, all I can say is that we need to have a lot of sensitization about this issue, because most of our youth here, they're unemployed, and most of them they're like school dropouts. So at least when we have more sensitization about these issues, land issues, and employment, and how to like civil rights and something like that, people will at least not look at their elders as enemies, but as or even us are going to be elders one of these days. So killing a person, that's even in our religion, is not advised. So we just have to love our elders, even if, because nobody is perfect. Sometimes somebody does this. We should learn to forgive and live together as one people. Yeah.
Amen.
Amen to that. Magan's gone frozen, I think. Magan 3.
End broadcast.
Oh, end broadcast.
Oh, end broadcast. Quisha.
Hey, Gladze, we got you in the end, bro.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, there was a problem. Dogo here, but at least
It was when you moved it,
frozen, so I think that was a good place to end, because Migantri got frozen and Karisa had the last word.
Yes, well done.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again, Karisa. We met at ITFA, remember? I'm glad I could see you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.